Have you ever had a moment that turned your entire world upside down? A moment that made you question everything you thought you knew about love, family, and forgiveness? I had one of those moments when my estranged father walked back into my life after 20 long years. Just when I thought I had buried the pain of his abandonment, he showed up unannounced, and suddenly, the ghosts of my past were very much alive. I was left to grapple with the remnants of my childhood, the scars of betrayal, and the haunting question, can you ever really forgive someone who shattered your world? My name is Emily, and I'm a single mother raising my daughter, Lily, in a small town in Michigan. The air is crisp here, especially in the fall, when the leaves turn vibrant shades of orange and red, but the beauty of the season has always been a bittersweet reminder of the warmth I never had. Growing up, I was the little girl who waited by the window, hoping my father would come back home. Instead, I learned to fill that void with memories of what could have been, a father who would teach me how to ride a bike, who would be there for my milestones, and who would love me unconditionally. For years, I had built a fortress around my heart, convinced that I didn't need him. My mother and I had a tumultuous relationship, filled with resentment and unspoken words. She never forgave him for leaving, and in turn, she couldn't forgive me for wanting to understand why. I often wondered if I was destined to repeat her mistakes, to carry the weight of anger and bitterness. But I was determined to be a better mother to Lily, to give her the love and stability I craved as a child. As I navigated my own challenges of parenthood, I tried to shield Lily from the complexities of my past. She was my light, my reason to wake up every morning and fight through the heartache. But then, one fateful afternoon, everything changed. I was picking Lily up from school when I saw him standing there, older, weathered, but unmistakably my father. The sight of him sent a jolt through me, a mix of disbelief and fury. How could he just show up after all these years? Did he think he could waltz back into my life and everything would be okay? The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. I found myself spiraling into memories I had buried deep within me. I remembered the day he left, the arguments, the tears, and the promises that were never kept. I remembered how I had to grow up too fast, how I had to become the adult in my relationship with my mother. I had spent so long building walls to protect myself, but now, it felt like those walls were crumbling, exposing the raw, vulnerable parts of me I thought I had hidden away. As I wrestled with my feelings, I learned that my father hadn't returned just to reconnect. He was in trouble, financial trouble, and he needed help. The revelation hit me like a freight train. I was angry, hurt, and yet, a part of me felt a flicker of compassion. Could I really turn my back on the man who had once been my hero, even if he had fallen from grace? The conflict within me was suffocating. I spent sleepless nights tossing and turning, replaying every moment of our past. I wanted to scream at him, to demand answers, but I also wanted to understand. What had driven him away? What had he been through in those 20 years? I began to realize that the pain I felt was not just about his absence. It was about the void it created in my life, the questions that would never be answered. I was torn between the desire for closure and the instinct to protect my heart. Then came the unexpected twist. One evening, while I was cleaning out some old boxes in the attic, I stumbled upon a stack of letters. They were addressed to me, written by my father during the years he was gone. My hands trembled as I opened the first one. It was filled with apologies, regrets, and a longing to be part of my life. Each letter peeled back the layers of my resentment, revealing the pain he had carried too. For the first time, I saw him not just as the man who abandoned me, but as a flawed human being who had made mistakes. Reading those letters shifted something within me. I began to understand that forgiveness is not about excusing someone's actions. It's about freeing myself from the burden of anger. I realized that holding on to the past was only hurting me. But could I truly forgive him? Could I allow him back into my life and, by extension, into Lily's? The decision weighed heavily on me. I sought advice from friends and family, but ultimately, it was my heart that had to lead the way. I knew I had to confront him, to ask the questions that had haunted me for so long. So, I arranged to meet him at the park where we used to spend time together. The place felt both familiar and foreign, a bittersweet reminder of the childhood I had lost. As I stood there, waiting for him to arrive, I felt a storm of emotions brewing inside me. I could see him walking toward me, his gait hesitant, as if he were afraid of what I might say. The moment he reached me, I was flooded with memories, the laughter, the warmth, and the heartbreak. But I also felt a sense of empowerment. I was no longer that little girl waiting for her father. I was a woman ready to reclaim her narrative. Our conversation was raw and emotional. I poured out my heart, sharing my pain, my anger, and my longing for answers. To my surprise, he listened intently, tears in his eyes. He spoke of his struggles, his regrets, and the demons that had driven him away. It was a revelation that shook me to my core. I realized that while I had built a narrative of abandonment, he had his own story of pain and loss. In that moment, I understood that forgiveness was not a destination but a journey. It wouldn't happen overnight, but I was willing to take the first step. I decided to give him a chance, not just for him, but for myself and for Lily. I wanted to break the cycle of hurt and resentment, to create a new narrative for our family. As we began to rebuild our relationship, I faced new challenges. My mother's disapproval loomed over me like a dark cloud. She couldn't understand why I would even consider allowing him back into our lives. The tension between us grew, and I found myself caught in a tug-of-war between my past and my desire for a future filled with healing. Through it all, I leaned on my own strength and the love I had for Lily. I wanted her to see that forgiveness is a powerful choice, one that can lead to growth and understanding. I wanted to show her that we are all human, capable of making mistakes, but also capable of change. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself navigating the complexities of this new relationship. My father was trying to make amends, and I was doing my best to let him in. We spent time together, slowly rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. He would come over for dinner, and I would watch him interact with Lily. It was a strange sight, seeing the man who had once been a ghost in my life now trying to be a part of it. Lily was curious about her grandfather, and I could see the excitement in her eyes as she learned more about him. I wanted to protect her from the pain of my past, but I also knew that this was an opportunity for healing. I encouraged her to ask questions, to get to know him, even if it meant facing the uncomfortable truth of our family history. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Lily asked my father why he had left. I felt my heart race, a mix of fear and anticipation. It was the moment I had been dreading, but I also knew it was necessary. My father took a deep breath, and I could see the weight of his past pressing down on him. He shared his story, the struggles he faced, the mistakes he made, and the demons he fought. As he spoke, I felt the walls I had built around my heart begin to crack. I realized that this wasn't just about forgiving him. It was about understanding the man he had become. It was about recognizing that we all have our battles, and sometimes those battles lead us down dark paths. I could see the pain in his eyes as he spoke, and for the first time, I felt a twinge of empathy. But just as I was beginning to open my heart, another unexpected twist came crashing down. My mother found out about our renewed relationship. The confrontation was explosive. She stormed into my home, her face a mask of anger and disbelief. "How could you do this, Emily? After everything he put us through?" Her words cut deep, and I felt the familiar pang of guilt rise within me. I tried to explain, to make her see that I was doing this for my own healing and for Lily's future. But she wouldn't listen. The argument escalated, and I felt the weight of my choices crashing down on me. In that moment, I was torn. I loved my mother, but I also needed to forge my own path. I realized that this journey was not just about my relationship with my father. It was about breaking free from the cycle of pain and resentment that had defined my family for too long. I had to choose my own happiness, even if it meant disappointing my mother. As the days turned into weeks, I felt the strain of my mother's disapproval weighing heavily on my shoulders. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, guilt, anger, and a fierce desire to protect my daughter. I knew that I had to find a way to navigate these turbulent waters, to seek a balance between honoring my mother's feelings and embracing the possibility of healing with my father. I started attending therapy, hoping to gain clarity and find the strength to confront my feelings. My therapist helped me explore the roots of my anger and the reasons behind my mother's fierce protectiveness. I learned that her anger stemmed from her own pain, her own unresolved issues with my father. It was a cycle that had been passed down, and I was determined to break it. With each session, I felt myself growing stronger. I began to see my mother not just as my parent, but as a woman who had faced her own struggles. I realized that while her anger was misdirected, it came from a place of love and fear. I wanted to help her understand that my journey toward forgiveness didn't negate her pain. It was a step toward healing for both of us. I decided to invite my mother to a dinner with my father, hoping to bridge the gap between them. I knew it was a long shot, but I felt it was necessary. I wanted her to see the man he had become, to witness the effort he was making to be a part of our lives. The night of the dinner was tense. I could feel the electricity in the air as we sat around the table. My father arrived first, and I could see the nervousness in his eyes. He was trying to put on a brave face, but I could sense the weight of the past pressing down on him. When my mother walked in, the atmosphere shifted. The tension was palpable, and I felt a knot form in my stomach. The dinner started off awkwardly, with forced small talk and polite smiles. But as the evening progressed, something shifted. My father shared stories from his life, and I watched as my mother's expression softened. There was a flicker of recognition in her eyes, a glimpse of the man she once loved, the man who had been lost for so long. As the night wore on, I could see the walls between them beginning to crumble. They shared memories, laughter, and even a few tears. It was a beautiful, painful moment, a reminder of the love that had once existed between them. I felt a glimmer of hope as I watched them reconnect, realizing that healing is possible, even in the most broken of relationships. But just when I thought we were making progress, my mother's fear reared its ugly head again. She pulled me aside after dinner, her voice trembling with emotion. "Emily, I can't lose you to him. I can't watch you get hurt again." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I understood her fear, but I also knew that I had to follow my heart. I had to forge my own path, even if it meant walking away from the expectations of my past. I gently reminded her that healing takes time, and that I was choosing to embrace the possibility of forgiveness for my own sake. The weeks that followed were a roller coaster of emotions. My father continued to make efforts to be present in our lives, and I found myself slowly letting go of the anger that had consumed me for so long. I watched as he formed a bond with Lily, and I felt a warmth spread through my heart. It was a new beginning, a chance to rewrite our family narrative. But my mother's struggle persisted. She remained distant, and the rift between us grew wider. I felt torn between my desire to support my father and my love for my mother. I knew I had to confront her again, to help her understand that my journey toward forgiveness didn't mean I was abandoning her. One evening, I invited her over for coffee, hoping to create a safe space for conversation. As we sat together, I took a deep breath and shared my feelings. "Mom, I love you, and I want to understand your pain. But I also need you to understand mine. I'm trying to heal, and I don't want to carry this anger anymore." Tears filled her eyes as she listened. "I just don't want you to get hurt again, Emily. I don't want to lose you." I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "You won't lose me. I'm still your daughter. I'm just trying to find my own way. Can't we work through this together?" In that moment, I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. It was the first step toward reconciliation, a chance to bridge the gap between our hearts. We talked late into the night, sharing our fears, our regrets, and our hopes for the future. It was a raw, honest conversation that brought us closer together. As I continued to navigate my relationship with my father, I found myself reflecting on the complexities of forgiveness. It wasn't a linear journey. It was filled with ups and downs, moments of clarity, and moments of doubt. I learned that healing takes time and that it's okay to feel a mix of emotions. One day, while I was out for a walk with Lily, I spotted a beautiful tree with vibrant leaves, its branches reaching toward the sky. It reminded me of my own journey, a journey of growth and resilience. I wanted to teach Lily that life is about embracing the beauty in the chaos, about finding strength in vulnerability. I turned to her and said, "You know, Lily, sometimes life throws us challenges, but it's how we respond that matters. We can choose to hold on to anger, or we can choose to forgive and grow." She looked up at me with wide eyes, absorbing my words. "Can we really forgive, Mommy?" I smiled, feeling a warmth in my heart. "Yes, sweetie. It may not be easy, but it's possible, and it's worth it." As I continued to share my journey with Lily, I felt a sense of purpose. I wanted to show her that forgiveness is a powerful choice, one that can lead to healing and understanding. I wanted to create a legacy of love, one that would carry on through generations. As the seasons changed, so did my relationship with my father and my mother. We began to find common ground, slowly rebuilding the trust that had been lost. My father became a regular presence in our lives, and I watched as he formed a bond with Lily. It was a beautiful sight, one that filled my heart with hope. But just as I thought we were on the right path, another unexpected twist emerged. My father's health began to decline. He was diagnosed with a chronic illness, and the news hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt a rush of emotions, fear, sadness, and a deep sense of urgency. Suddenly, the timeline of our relationship shifted. I realized that our time together was limited, and I felt an overwhelming desire to make the most of it. I wanted to create lasting memories, to cherish every moment we had left. I reached out to my father, and we began to spend more time together. We went on walks, shared stories, and even cooked together. I found myself laughing and crying in equal measure, realizing that this journey had brought us closer together in ways I never imagined. As I watched him struggle with his illness, I felt a renewed sense of compassion. I wanted to be there for him, to support him in his time of need. I learned that forgiveness is not just about letting go of the past. It's about embracing the present and creating a future filled with love. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I turned to my father and said, "I'm grateful for this time we have together. I want you to know that I forgive you, not just for the past, but for the person you are today." Tears filled his eyes as he nodded, the weight of our shared journey hanging in the air. "Thank you, Emily. I never wanted to hurt you. I'm so sorry for everything." In that moment, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. I knew that while our journey had been filled with pain, it had also been filled with love and growth. I had learned to embrace the complexities of forgiveness, and I was finally ready to let go of the anger that had held me captive for so long. As I reflect on this journey, I realize that healing is not linear. There are days when I feel empowered and hopeful, and other days when the weight of the past feels unbearable. But I'm learning to embrace the complexity of my emotions, to allow myself to feel without judgment. I'm learning that it's okay to be vulnerable, to let others in, even if it's scary. So, here I am, standing at a crossroads. My father is back in my life, and while the road ahead is uncertain, I'm filled with hope. I've learned that sometimes, the hardest choices lead to the most profound growth. And as I move forward, I find myself wondering, what does the future hold for us? Can we truly heal as a family, or will the scars of the past always linger? As I share my story with you, I invite you to reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever faced a moment of reckoning with someone you thought you'd lost forever? What would you do in my shoes? I'd love to hear your thoughts, your advice, and your stories. After all, We're all in this together, navigating the complexities of love, loss, and the hope for a brighter tomorrow. In the end, I realized that forgiveness is a journey we all must take, one that leads us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and those we love. And as I look toward the future, I hold on to the hope that we can create a new narrative, one filled with love, healing,